At a remote Scottish village in the year 1674, rumors of a witch are afloat. With each passing day, the residents grow more and more suspicious of each other, and it is up to us to find this monster before it's too late. We play as a witchfinder, summoned to sort truth from lies. But this is no easy task, for a real witch would never confess unless the devil's hold on them was broken. We have no choice but to use more advanced methods of persuasion to loosen their sinful tongues. By the fifth dawn, a witch must hang. This is the story of Daemonologie, a short but chilling indie horror game that offers a glimpse into the brutality of the European witch trials. The title of the game is likely a reference to a book of the same name, written by King James VI in 1597. The work describes witches as hidden threats within everyday life, and thoroughly outlined the methods required to expose them. Witchfinders treated its pages as direct mandate. They entered towns with unwavering certainty, armed with the king's writings, and a worldview that framed suspicion as virtue and hesitation as weakness. The premise of Daemonologie is simple. We have 4 days to identify the witch residing within the village. There are 6 residents, or rather suspects in total, each found in different locations. Interacting with them consumes time, of which we have a finite amount of. Starting at the smith's abode, we meet the man who summoned us, Blacksmith Oswin. The forge is thick with dust and cobwebs, and its keeper wears a strange metal contraption strapped across his face. He claims that damned shepherd cursed his jaw to fall off, after which he managed to weld it back on. That, he insists, is why he called for us. In his mind, this is witchcraft beyond question, but that is for us to decide. Heading to the shepherd's abode, we find the place in ruin. The fence has collapsed, and most of the sheep lie dead. The old woman, Violet, seems distraught. She claims a curse has been placed upon her, and insists that the vile blacksmith sent his wolf familiar to slaughter her flock. When we inform Violet of Oswin's accusation, she dismisses it as a blatant lie, claiming that the damage to his jaw was his own doing. Already we have 2 conflicting accounts, and it seems likely that things will only get more complicated from here on out. The witchfinder asks the shepherd if she loves God, to which she responds with doubt, questioning if that prick still loves her. This seems to anger the witchfinder, warning that if she doesn't mind her words, he'll have her swinging by day's death. Making our way to the old church, we meet the village priest, Father Usby. The man seems eager to assist with the investigation and directs us towards a woman named Lilias near the Ring o' Stains. Usby speaks of her with open contempt, calling her a filthy whore who dances with shadows at night. Another suspect added to the list. The priest also tells us that not too long ago, there were 9 people living in this village, but the blacksmith's wife passed from illness during the winter, the shepherd's husband fled after drowning in debt, and Lilias's gentleman caller went missing just the week before. Interesting. Following the priest's suspicions, we head to the Ring o' Stains to find this woman. Lilias sits calmly within the circle of stones, looking far more composed than her reputation suggests. She describes herself as a practitioner of traditional healing, and boasts that there are little her concoctions cannot cure. When asked about the other villages, she speaks kindly of all of them, all except Father Usby. She warns us against seeking salvation from him, claiming his mind has slipped into zealotry and worse. We then question her about the priest's claim that he once saw her dancing with shadows in the night. Lilias of course denies this outright, saying she has felt no desire to dance ever since her lover went missing. She then turns the accusation back on the priest, asking why he would be spying on her in the middle of the night to begin with. A fair question indeed. Lilias believes Usby disapproves of her relationship with young Gavin, a stable hand from the next village over. They have been courting for a few years now, but she has not seen him of late, nor has anyone else. At the edge of the woods, we encounter a strange old woman by the name of Griselda. She immediately berates us for trespassing in her forest and threatens to put a curse of boils on our member and maggots on our backside. The witchfinder doesn't take kindly to these remarks and warns the crone to bide her tongue, or else he shall remove it. But in response, Griselda just makes another perverse joke about our intentions. She clearly has a few screws loose, and her age does nothing to reflect her maturity. The old woman then goes on to claim that everyone in this village has shared their bed with Satan, so if it's a witch we seek, then we need only take our pick. The last resident of the village can be found at Bothwell's Crossing, a fisherman. His appearance is by far the most monstrous. His entire body seems covered in hair, and his face looks warped and distorted. The man explains that his father was the same, suggesting an inherited condition like hypertrichosis. But despite his unsightly exterior, Fearon is easily the most pleasant among the residents. He's the only one who refrains from throwing out accusations. On the contrary, he insists that there are no witches in this village at all, just good simple folk working the land. But that still remains to be seen. That night, the witchfinder experiences his first of many prophetic dreams, said to reveal truths hidden from his waking mind. In this vision, we see a distorted version of Father Usby kneeling in frantic prayer, his hands pointed downward towards the earth beneath him. Behind the priest are several demonic creatures observing and partaking in the ritual. The dream ends abruptly as Usby's body rises into the air, twisted into the shape of an upside-down cross. In the morning, we continue our investigation. Oswin remains convinced that the shepherd cursed him, now adding that he believes it was in retaliation for the fence he built for her. Violet claimed the fence was poorly made and refused to pay for the work, later insisting that its weakness allowed wolves to slip into her farm and slaughter her sheep. But Oswin tells a different story, insisting the fence was sound and that she simply left the gate open. But that can't be the case. The fence was clearly broken. When asked about Violet's accusation that he sent a wolf familiar to attack her farm, Oswin dismisses it outright, calling her a lying witch. It's obvious this back and forth will lead us nowhere. The two are determined to blame each other for everything, and their stories shift with every conversation. It's best we turn our attention elsewhere for now. Checking up on the priest, Usby seems concerned that we are spending so much time inside the house of the Lord. Vermin rush to the shadows, not bask in holy light, he says. But there are others who would say differently. When we inform him of Lilius's accusations, he takes great offense, doubling down on his claim that she is the witch, and now adding that she has taken the lives of at least 3 infants, a charge as bold as it is heinous. Returning to the woods, old Griselda launches straight back into a tirade, wishing that our eyes burst open with ants. She then begins cursing the priest, claiming she once saw him praying with his hands pointed downward, as though offering devotion to Lucifer beneath the earth. Her description perfectly mirrors what we witnessed in last night's dream. Curious, we ask when she saw the priest performing this blasphemous act. She answers, tomorrow, which makes little sense unless she somehow sees into the future. When we press her again, clarifying the question, Griselda suddenly appears confused, as if she has no idea who or what we are speaking about. The cycle continues endlessly, hinting at a deeper cognitive decline. Given her age, dementia seems like the most likely explanation. Either way, we won't get much more out of her like this. At this point, we've reached a standstill. The residents refuse to give us straight answers, and every conversation leads only to more contradictions. If we hope to uncover the truth, whatever that truth may be, we must resort to more drastic measures. Fortunately for us, our trusty handbook outlines exactly what must be done. We teared their tongues, we filled their lungs with water, we crushed their fingers, and we pierced their skin. Even after the first round of torture, Violet remains adamant that the blacksmith is the witch. But with a bit more persuasion, her story changes. She admits she lied about Oswin, that she simply forgot to close the gate to her farm, allowing the sheep to fall prey to wolves or some other beasts. But even this confession still raises doubts. The fence is very clearly destroyed. Violet then shifts the blame again, now accusing the fisherman. She says she wouldn't be surprised if he was the one who attacked her sheep, saying that Firon appears more beast than man. But this is just another baseless accusation from an already unreliable source. After loosening Oswin's tongue, he concedes that the fence he built for Violet wasn't his finest work. That would explain the wreckage. Still, he remains convinced that she is the witch we seek. How else, he argues, could we explain what happened to his jaw? Usby remains oddly fixated on Lilias, and for a man of the cloth, he says some truly vulgar things about her. Even the witchfinder notices this, but the priest just continues rambling, calling her a blasphemous pagan harlot. His fixation with the young woman grows more apparent with each conversation. There is clearly something going on between them that he refuses to admit. After roughing Lilias up, she reveals her true feelings about Usby, that he is a shadow looming over them all, a beast in sheep's clothing, whose slimy tendrils clasp the village tight. When confronted about Usby's accusations regarding the newborns, the woman breaks down, crying uncontrollably. Lilias explains that she and her partner Gavin almost had a child of their own, but the priest claimed it was an abomination conceived out of wedlock, forcing her to terminate the pregnancy. There's no doubt about it. Usby harbors some sort of twisted obsession with Lilias, something far deeper than the righteous anger he pretends to wield. Turning our attention back to old Griselda, she tells us something entirely unexpected. She claims that she is the witch we've been looking for. But not only that, according to the crone, the shepherd and the fisherman are witches as well. She says they feast upon festering carcasses, like buzzards in hell, and that they will feast upon us too, if we fail to deal with them. It's a tempting confession to latch onto, but Griselda is far from a reliable source. We shouldn't jump to conclusions just yet. Despite all the information we've gathered, we seem no closer to solving the case. Firon once again urges us to see reason, insisting that we will find no witches here, or anywhere for that matter. But what does he know? He's just a lowly fisherman, and we are a veteran witchfinder, armed with the mandate of the king. That night, we dream once more. In this vision, a witch-like figure sits within the ring of stains, gently caressing what appears to be a child. After some time, the child is taken up by a web into a nest of sorts, but soon falls, revealing its unsettling appearance. The child screams and cries to no end, and then suddenly, its head erupts, releasing a swarm of tiny insects. The stream seems to echo the story Lilias told us, the pregnancy that was taken from her. With time running low, we have no choice but to become more aggressive in our interrogation. Lilias adds further detail to her story, claiming to have saw the priest performing an unholy ritual inside the church, cavorting with all manner of beasts. She also casts suspicion on Griselda, warning us that men who wander into her woods never return. She believes the crone turns them into trees, and fears her lover Gavin met the very same fate after entering the woods and disappearing. On top of her usual vulgarities, Griselda now accuses the blacksmith of dancing with the devil's flame. Flames of hell, she says, bright flashes of pure white, far too intense to belong to this earth. When we question Oswin about these strange lights, he explains that they were not the work of witchcraft, but rather part of a small project of his. He claims to have acquired a powerful red powder from a German fellow, one that burns brighter than we would ever believe. The substance he describes is likely phosphorus, which gives us a possible explanation for Oswin's jaw. Phossy jaw, or phosphorus necrosis of the jaw, is a severe condition where the jawbone decays due to prolonged exposure to white phosphorus. By heating red phosphorus in his forge, Oswin may have inadvertently created an unstable white phosphorus-like compound that slowly destroyed his jaw over time. which would mean that his accusations against the shepherd carry little credibility. Usby puts up a strong front, but with enough persistence, we finally break him. The priest confesses that he gave in to temptation and coveted relations with Lilias. He claims that he begged a black goat to let him bed that supple maiden, and as disturbing as that is, what follows next is even worse. Usby says he takes comfort in knowing Lilias's lover will never return, because he saw to that, personally, burying his remains in the old woods. Griselda attests to this, claiming she saw the priest dash the lad's brains out firsthand. Usby is undeniably a wicked and depraved individual, but whether he is the witch we seek still remains uncertain. When we inform Lilias of the priest's confession, she reacts with shock and horror. She begs us to just hang the villain, insisting that only someone aligned with the devil could commit such an evil act. And perhaps she is right. At night we dream of the blacksmith and witness the blinding white flames Griselda spoke of. Oswin seems to be forging across, and within his workshop stands a sheep that promptly loses its head upon seeing the blacksmith's terrifying face, which resembles the skull of a slack-jawed raven. This imagery is clearly meant to reflect the accusations made against Oswin by the shepherd. Today is our last chance to discern the truth, and things have only gotten more complicated. After subjecting Lilias to further torture, she suddenly admits that she is the witch we seek, and claims to have attempted to kill the priest at the behest of her master. The woman says that she slipped cursed belladonna, a highly toxic plant, into his wine, seeking retribution for the way Usby groped her when she was a child, and for the dirty looks he still gives her today. Lilias also claims Griselda aided her in this task, insisting the old crone is the grand high witch who turns men into trees. At this point, we can either allow Usby to drink the poisoned wine, or warn him of Lilias's plot. It doesn't make much of a difference either way, but we might as well let the woman have her revenge. Besides, it's not our place to mediate the personal affairs of the villagers. We are a witchfinder after all, not the town's watchman. Our only concern should be finding the witch. Usby gulps down the wine, but the poison doesn't seem to take effect just yet. Ramping up the frequency and intensity of the torture, we begin getting confessions left and right. First the shepherd. Despite her prior bickering, she now admits to being the witch and begs for the torture to stop. She claims to have slaughtered her own sheep as a sacrifice to the devil, hoping to place a curse on Oswin to silence his insufferable rambling. Next, the blacksmith begins to sing. After Violet refused to pay for his work, he says he stoked up Lucifer himself from his fires and set the wolves of hell upon her sheep. Lastly, Griselda cackles with delight. She declares that everyone in this damned village is a witch and dares us to hang them all if we have the courage. And just like that, our time is up. The sun sets and we have our last dream. We dream of the woods late at night. A lone man has wandered his way in, and in the shadows lurks a witch. She casts a spell that disfigures his body, morphing the man into a tree, an obvious reference to the accusations made by Lilias against Griselda. Morning arrives, and we are faced with the decision: who is the witch? We have spent the last 4 days terrorizing and interrogating these 6 villagers, yet we stand with no clearer answer than when we began. The priest admits to murder, but not witchcraft. The blacksmith, the shepherd, and the maiden all confess to being the witch, yet their stories contradict one another. Griselda insists that every last one of them is a witch, and the fisherman says that none of them are. So who do we trust? Who do we sentence to death? Well, the truth of the matter is that our decision is utterly meaningless. No matter who we send to the gallows, the result remains identical. The witchfinder is paid for his services and rides off in his carriage without a care in the world. Just like in the real-life witch hunts, there was never any witch. We were simply led to believe there was. The witchfinder is a zealot, and both his thoughts and actions reflected that. His dreams were never prophecies. They were the subconscious ravings of a madman. Anything that initially appeared supernatural actually carries a far more grounded explanation upon closer inspection. Even the so-called devil's mark, a sign supposedly present only on those who have made a pact with the devil, appears on every single villager, meaning it is either another hallucination of the witchfinder or a deliberate distortion of reality. But then what of the confessions, you ask? Well, it turns out that torture is perhaps not the most reliable way to determine the truth. This is something that has been proven both by history and modern psychology. Under extreme pain, fear, or exhaustion, the human brain prioritizes survival over honesty. People will say whatever they think the torturer wants to hear in order to get the pain to stop. If we actually examine the villagers' confessions, we find they are incoherent, contradictory, and completely detached from the narratives they gave earlier. This exact same phenomenon is what defined the European witch trials. Innocent people invented impossible stories and confessed to crimes they had never committed, all in a desperate attempt to end their suffering. This was the grim reality of being accused of witchcraft in the 1600s. The fisherman, whose name in Scots Gaelic fittingly means truth, said it best. You won't find any witches here, or anywhere for that matter, only your own wretched soul that has made a pact with devils and demons. You only hear the truths you wish to hear, a blackened beggar, a leech upon the land, trading torment for gold. There is one final dream that perfectly captures the entire story of Daemonologie. In it, a lone black-coated sheep approaches a group of other sheep resting peacefully. It begins aggressively growling and snarling at them, causing these dark tendril-like structures to twist and form around their bodies. The sheep cry out in pain, but they are powerless to resist. All they can do is accept their fate. This is analogous of how the witchfinder, through his brutal and inhumane torture, twisted the residents into becoming the very monsters he sought to find.